So, Johnny, Outer Battery Records. Okay, so we're punk rockers growing up in St. John's. You leave, you go away. Now, so ever many years later, you and Sweet Apple have a label together.
Right.
And you've got some really cool people, musicians who obviously believe in what you're doing. You've got Jay Mascis, who's been doing a lot of work with you.
Right.
And I did notice you have one of the off releases as well.
Yeah, I see you're wearing an off hat. We did that live a live record for them, which sounds great. Do you
So
have?
good.
I'll send you a copy if you don't have it.
I was gonna ask you about that. It's probably the only off thing that I don't have.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I'll send one to you.
Yeah, I've got their live at the BBC, the 7 inch of that, and it sounds like a studio album. They are
Yeah.
so fucking tight.
Oh no. Yeah. Exactly. They're crazy tight.
Yeah, I got tickets to go see them on May 7th. I'm really excited.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Yeah. We did a live Dinosaur Junior record, and Off had opened up for them, so we had the recording. So after we did the live Dino record,
Mm.
Dave is friends with Mario, the drummer. So he was like, Dave went to Mario and was like, "Hey, we've got this amazing sound and recording." So it's funny that two of the records we don't actually publicize so much as from the same show, but the Dino and the Off are the same night.
Wow, that's very cool. Are you gonna do a double album?
Yeah, it would be sort of fun to put them together. And we got Raymond Pettibone to do the cover, which was like a dream come true for us.
Yeah.
So never actually held it in our own hands. Like we just got the file from the band, but I mean, I've loved his artwork since the Black Flag days. So
It's yeah. He's one of a kind. It's instantly recognizable, and
yeah, exactly.
I don't quite know how he does what he does, but it's pretty insane.
Yeah, and he's done it forever. I mean, I found out only maybe 20 years ago that he'd become a big deal in the art world,
Hmm.
because I only knew him from the hardcore days. And they're like,
Mhm.
"Oh, Raymond Pettibone is famous. Like his art sells for like tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars." I was like, "Oh, when did that happen?"
That's weird. I didn't know that either.
Oh yeah, no, he's not like, I don't know who to compare him to, like Banksy level
Right.
famous, but he's definitely a million miles past just doing hardcore records. Like
Right.
he's a big deal in the art world.
That's very cool. I'll have to look into that because I like I say, I love all of his hard. I only know him from the hardcore stuff.
Right. Yeah, me too for the longest time. I didn't realize he was such a big deal. And sadly that it didn't really matter, but the cover caused us some trouble because our distributor was afraid that the estate of Farrah Fawcett would be pissed that we used that image. So
Mhm.
because at the time our distributor was owned by Sony, and they were like, this is going to be a lawsuit. So, but there were plenty of smaller indie distributors who are like, we don't care. So for that one release, we put that through other distributors rather than, and I don't think anyone would have really cared. But once you're dealing in that world, their lawyers are always worried about something going wrong.
Yeah, yeah. I'm familiar with that tangle.
Yeah.
So you've been doing records you've been doing this record company. Now are you signing bands, or are you licensing stuff?
Not well, sort of, but basically, Dave and I have worked in distribution for 30 years, sort of separately, and then came back together 10, 12 years ago when we started the label. And we didn't want to like run a label where we're signing a band, trying to break a new band, especially in this day and age. We didn't start it till 2012, so
Right.
the glory years were already over in the
Already
music
gone.
business. So more what we're doing is using a lot of the bands are signed to other labels, and we're just so they have an established track record. And so we're using like our personal connections to say, hey, how about we do this cool record? We know you're signed to whoever, but this will be something on the side. And so we know we have a built-in fan base. So it's a little bit different. That it's almost more like we're doing collectible art pieces than actually like being the band's proper record label.
It's weird you say that because I kind of get that impression from some of the smaller. I see it in the hardcore world, but again, it's the only world I'm tuned into. Really, folk artists and stuff don't do 7 inches.
Right.
Um, But that whole sort of let's do something unique and interesting, and we'll only run a couple hundred copies. I have a logistic question. Does it make it easier being a 7-inch for shipping? Because the problem that I'm running into with my LPs is that it's costing me $30 to ship one in Canada.
That's in Canada is terrible. There's this, I mean, for that reason.
Yeah, no.
Not in general. Yeah, there's this amazing thing that for whatever reason they've stuck with in America called media mail. So it's books, records, and it's one flat price, and it costs like the postage is like under $5 anywhere in America for a record.
Ugh.
Yeah, I mean the sad thing is it has gone way up overseas. So now I have to pay $25 to ship a record, or $24 to send it to Canada, 25 overseas. But within America, as long as media mail exists, it's
Wow.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, it's the lifeblood of the mail order industry in America. So let's hope to God it never changes.
Well, in Canada, like everything has gone to Amazon, which is
Yeah.
fine. They run a great service. Their machine is impeccable. Yes, it's a corporate overlord. I know all that stuff, but I mean, as far as it goes, but the small business scene in Canada is dead. It's $30 for me to ship a hat.
Yeah, that's crazy. I
Yeah.
mean, even if media mail didn't exist, if I had to use priority, it'd be like $10 on the East Coast and $15 to California would be to send a record. And a hat you could ship for $6, $7 anywhere in the country.
That's the way it used to be here too. I used to be able to get hats and stuff out, and sort of small packets for anywhere between $3 and $6. But now they've changed.
Right.
They've tightened down, and it's gotten really hard.
Oh, that's too bad. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, that doesn't answer my or that doesn't connect what I was thinking, the logic behind the 7-inch, because I was actually thinking recently on my new record, because people hate paying, you're charging $25-$30 for a record, then there's $30 shipping on top of it. People are like, it's just too much. So I was thinking of going to 7 inches because I can get back to shipping them for $3 or $4 and doing 2 7-inches per record.
Oh yeah, I mean that would be. I mean, people like the 7-inch. We've done a few of them just because they're kind of cool and they're cheaper than a record. Obviously, there's not a lot of profit margin in a 7-inch.
Yeah,
it's a lot easier to break even with them anyway.
That's kind of, I mean, everything's about breaking even these days. I don't know if I know anybody who's making profit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find ways to actually get people, what they want. And even in Canada, distributing, through Fab and out to the country and stuff. It's a tough thing with so many artists, in the business right now. And with the vinyl, it just seems to be that everybody's got it and everybody's doing it, and it's
right. Yeah.
hard to get pressed.
And Canada's a small market but a giant country. So if you're servicing the whole country, I mean,
It's massive.
And yet there's only under 40 million people. So there's as many people within 10 miles of where I'm sitting as there is in almost all of Canada. So
yeah, see, that's something to that goes to your benefit, I'm sure.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. No, if especially when our overseas prices shipping got a lot higher. I have an old friend in Berlin who does our European mail order, but it did take a big chunk out of it. But America by itself, it's just so many people who live here that it could support the label by itself, just America, not having to worry about any other country.
Oh, that's awesome. I mean, you've got great artists on the label who, sort of legendary artists, for lack of a better word, the iconic punk rock people from the early days. And they're showing you support. And I mean, I think it's a fantastic thing. So are you both in New York, the whole team?
No, Dave's in Brattleboro, Vermont.
Okay.
And he was in Boston for years, and he ran a distributor in the 90s and early 2000s called Surefire.
That's right. I remember that.
And then the company moved to Brattleboro, but then it slowly, as the music business started winding down for everyone, having a company of 8-10 people ultimately just shrank down to him and the partner, and then it folded shortly before we started the label. And then Dave got in touch because he knew I was working for distributors here, and he was like, let's start a label. So yeah, so we split it between here and Vermont.
That's awesome. Wow. So and that's good too, because that gives you 200-mile radiuses to work as well.
Right. Yeah, definitely.
I'm not sure what's out in Vermont in the way of an industry, but I'm sure that there's a hardcore
It's a
kids
cool.
skateboarding in a garage somewhere.
Yeah, definitely. And he's at the very bottom of Vermont, so Western Massachusetts
Oh yeah.
is right there. So there's all those college towns. There's a big scene happening.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic. Um, okay. I got another question for you.
Sure.
I grew up listening to a bunch of music. I fell in love with punk rock while skateboarding and meeting all you guys downtown. The scene and the culture was electric, for lack of a better word. It was such a great time in my life, and I think for all of us, a very memorable time. And I know that those formative years, certain impressions can stick with you. The type of music you listen to, certain movies you saw, things like that. And I know that, bands like Stiff Little Fingers, Television, Minor Threat, Husker Du, DOA, SNFU, you name it. Those were the bands that were impacting all of us back home in the scene. And I remember the change, like when COC became popular and the sort of shred metal came in and the speedcore and all that stuff. And the transition from DRI being a punk band to a metal band, I think would probably be the right word.
Yeah.
I kind of lost interest in the hardcore scene. It seemed like, the bands that I was into were sort of folding out and the new stuff coming in. And then years later, I talked to my kids about punk rock, and they're dealing with, Avril Lavigne saying that she's the pioneer of punk, and bands like Sum 41 taking all the credit, while Chai Pig is still alive, living as an addict on the street in Vancouver.
Right. Yeah.
It's been such a weird change in sort of the origins of punk, which were actually before when I got into it, but from that really seminal time when I was into it in the late 70s, early 80s. And then in the last 30 years, it's become I don't even know what, but I still listen to, every time I go into a record store, I go to the punk section and, always the metal section because they put the punk in with the metal because they don't have a punk section. And I'll find, the old Suicidal Tendencies albums and stuff. And I love that stuff.
Yeah.
And every now and again, I try something of the newer punk, aside from Off, of course. Off is in a different category.
Yeah.
But I try some of these new punks. And there's some cool stuff, even like the Bronx, which is like, yeah, that's cool. But it's got so much flavor of modern production and rock,
right,
that I'm not finding anything that has that sort of sound. So the question is, does that still exist? And where does an old punk rocker like myself, where do we pick up on what's new and current that has that sort of sound and value to it?
I don't know. I'm sort of in the same position as you, because I think recording technologies are so far advanced now that you would have to try to go retro to make it sound like it did for us. So I think, because even a little band can do something with Pro Tools where you're like, oh, that sounds great.
Yeah.
And so I think it's so easy to sort of clean up that sound, while half of what made the sound for what we were listening to is because we couldn't make it sound any better if we wanted to, or any slicker.
Exactly.
And that's where the charm of it was. But now, I don't really know, because it's the same thing. It's too slick sounding, or it's just not right to our ears.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you know of any other new bands who are doing it the way Off are?
Yeah.
And let me also say that the new Off record is really borderline.
Yeah.
All the earlier stuff was like balls to the wall hardcore. The new album is that, but it's like hardcore infused with King Crimson. Like it's fascinating. I fucking love it, but it's not that. So I like how they've developed it. But is there anybody else you can think of who's kind of done that?
I can't really think of anything. I'm just too out of touch with that kind of stuff. Like it's mostly just the old stuff that I know. Like I don't know who's out there. Maybe there's like a 15-year-old kids doing something comparable, but I wouldn't know about it. Well, actually, I'm sure it is out there somewhere.
I'm sure.
And I can't think of many people besides Off who captured that spirit without, like obviously Keith Morris has been doing it since day one, so it kind of makes sense. But even the stuff like Bronx or all that, it's too cleaned up and, just to use a weird term, too good sounding for my
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
yeah.
Um, I have one other semi little punk rock question to ask you. It looks like we've got about 6 minutes left before the 440 hits, so
Okay.
maybe we'll get this rounded out. I've been on the fence about a band, and I don't know why. I haven't had this sort of love-hate relationship with a band in a long time, and I'm curious if you're aware of them and what you think. What's your take on Idols?
Oh, I mean, my friend here in New York works for the label. Who it doesn't work for me. I don't get it. I'm not quite sure why they're as big as they are. It's not bad. I mean, I can at least sort of respect it, in that I can see why some people are into it. And if, I've never seen them. By the time my friend started working at the label, it was already kind of COVID time, and I'm like, I don't think I want to go see the show. But yeah, I can. Apparently, the live show is amazing, and maybe I'll hit up Pat for the next time they come in. Now that it seems maybe a little bit safer to go out in public.
I think it's getting safer, yeah.
But I don't. I can respect it, but it doesn't do it for me. I don't quite get it.
I am having such a hard time. I sort of saw them on a TV show or something, and I went, "Oh my God, this caught my eye." I'm a bass player too, so I mean that sort of aggressive, high-centered bass always catches my ear. And then I did some research on them. I kind of dug them, and then I bought a record. I got it home and I put it on, and after 2 or 3 listens, I kind of went, "This feels like a scam."
Right? Yeah.
And it feels like I'm being scammed.
Yeah.
And then
have you seen them live? Because apparently the live show.
I hear the live show is stellar.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm sort of holding off until I do finally see them, to see whether that like really pulls it together for me, or if but I'm like you. I'm left in a sort of a weird limbo where at first I was like, oh yeah, and I'm like, I can see why these guys are big, and then I'm like, but wait, I'm not sure actually.
That's exactly where I am with. That's so fantastic that you feel the same way. Okay, in the last few minutes, I want to say thanks for coming on the show, and man, it's nice to reconnect. I don't know when I'm going to be down your way or when you'll be up my way, but it is nice to actually talk and realize that you're the same person I remember.
Yeah, and you are, except for the facial hair, of course.
Except for all the beard, yeah.
Yeah.
So on the label, you have a few new things coming up. You've got the off record, of course, and you've got the new Heavy Blanket album.
Yeah, so that's doing great. That just came out, and that's, Jay Mascis, everybody loves Jay. He's got, and deservedly so. Although I will admit, I'm maybe not the perfect target audience for him, because sometimes those leads are, I'm like, ooh, you could just rein that back a little bit. But he is a genius on guitar, and people love him. And so that's doing really well. And we have the Fake Name single that we did last year. We were changing distributors, so today is technically the street date for stores, and that's it has Brian Baker from Minor Threat on guitar, so that's like a dream come true for me.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so it's all like DC sort of legendary people on it, and that was one of those. It's Epitaph put the record out, but Michael, the other guitarist, lives in the neighborhood, so I got to know him pretty well, and he's like, "Would you guys like to do an actual physical single, because Epitaph can't be bothered?" And I was like, yes, we do.
Wow. You're in the perfect sweet spot.
Yeah. No, I mean, it was so funny. It's just because I'm a friend, and he came to me, and Epitaph were so easy to deal with because they make so much money with everything else. They said to Michael, do you know someone who'd want to do it? And he's like, I do. And they were like, all right, we didn't have to pay anything. They just, they gave us everything, and we pressed it on 4 different colors. And then the other thing, which I just found out completed at the plant, is we're doing a Swervedriver record.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, which I'm really, so not really hardcore, but the loud guitar of it always appealed to me. So
yeah,
and it's it's the original recording of the first demo that got them signed. So it's like circa 1990. It just sounds great. So
oh yeah. And they'll have big, the walls of guitar won't be reined in too much if it's a demo.
Yeah, exactly. It is for a British band of that era, the guitar was huge,
Yeah.
so it's a big, loud guitar. It's 4 songs, and so it's like the 30th anniversary, or now I guess
That would be,
20 years or something like that. So that's the next thing coming up, which will be, I guess, late May when that comes out.
Well, I'll be sure to put links for everything up. John, thanks for coming out and spending some time with us and reconnecting with me and telling me all about the label and what you and Dave have been doing. Say hi to Dave for me as well. I wish you all the best with everything, keeping punk rock alive, man. It's nice that there's people like you still doing that. So
yeah, it's great talking to you. Definitely.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. We'll catch up at some point and have a conversation that's not being recorded and have a good catch up. I'll drop you my phone number.
Oh yeah, perfect. That'd be great.
That'd be cool. It's been nice to have you on the show, brother. We'll talk to you soon.
You too. Okay.
Bye-bye.